Dr. Osman, now with Russia's reaffirmed presence in Syria, how does Moscow's role shape the future of the political landscape of Syria post Bashar al-Assad?
It seems that Russia, in some way or the other, did let Assad go and let his regime go. Meaning that what happened because Russia, I would not say it consented what has happened to Assad, but it tolerated it and it tolerated it and it tolerated the consequences in return for certain guarantees regarding its permanent military bases inside Syria. Russia's sole interest or core interest inside Syria is its Tartus naval base that it has maintained in Syria since 1971, and it's Russia's only naval presence in the Mediterranean Sea, and of course its Hamaim air base, which was established in the city of Latakia after the Russian intervention in Syria. Now that the militant organizations and the militant groups inside Syria have certain understandings with the Russian in terms of guaranteeing the safety of these bases and not bothering Russian interests inside Syria, in return for Russia not taking any proactive action against these forces that are struggling now to maintain control of Syria. This might be a logical deal for the Russians, especially that Russia's focus right now is centered on Ukraine. And Russia is entering a very decisive phase with its war with Ukraine, and they have the battlefield initiative, and they are Trump potentially can broker a deal to end the war that is favorable to Russian interests. So they do not want to jeopardize that by getting entangled once again in a conflict in the Middle East. So that's the preliminary assessment. However, whether these understandings between the militants or the new authorities in Syria and Russia, whether they are sustainable or temporary, remains to be seen in the coming days and weeks and months.
Well, so what about the US? How credible really is the US stance on recognizing a Syrian government that renounces terrorism and protects minority rights?
Of course, the US publicly or overtly is adopting a very cautious stance in terms of the gradual recognition and legitimization of the new government in Syria, which is dominated, of course, by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and this is no secret. And now the US is mulling the idea of removing Hayat Tahrir al-Sham from its terrorism lists. However, we have not seen any substantial change in the conduct of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham on the ground inside Syria. Mr. Ahmed al-Shara, also known as al-Julani, is adopting a very moderate tone, a very moderate discourse to ensure the regional partners of Syria and its neighbors and the international community. However, the action and the behavior of many of the militants that are within his armed coalition of rebel groups, the conduct of the ground is very concerning, with reports coming out of field execution of former army officers and soldiers and prison guards and Syrian officials as well, especially in the security services, and members of minority groups like the Alawites and Christians have been targeted, and as well as some Shia shrines have been targeted. So it doesn't seem that the conduct will change haphazardly. However, it still remains to be seen whether Ahmad al-Shara and his new government can actually control their basis of power and their militant elements in a manner so that they can control them and make them act more responsibly. Then the United States has claimed that it's dealing with a moderate partner inside Syria. However, that remains to be. And by that point, the U.S. already has garnered the fruits of what happened in Syria by diminishing Russian influence and entirely diminishing and destroying Iranian influence inside Syria.